Howdy. So, if you think like I do, I got aggravated with my Oculus Touch controller constantly vibrating. There are certain games that I guess they think to immerse you in the VR world that they need to vibrate over everything. Well, I got tired of it because my batteries weren't lasting and it just annoyed me. So I decided to go and disable it because there's no way to do it through software. So I did the old-fashioned way. Turned out to be a pretty big deal, kind of difficult, and kind of complicated. I had to, as you can see, cut through my ring to get it off. So I've learned a couple things through the way. I'm going to put it back together and start my second one. That little gray box right there with that red and black wire coming out of it at the end of my thumb is the little vibrator. It's hard to notice, but I Googled it and I found that the one in the Google Pixel looks exactly the same. So I unplugged it and that was it. It doesn't shake no more. So I'm actually not going to completely disassemble this because I had that certain goal in mind, just to disable that haptic feedback, as they call it. But if you were to go further than this, you would take out that little screw at the end of my thumb and that one right there at the end of my thumb. These two just hold on the thumbstick, and then that would allow you to pull all the body off of the little motherboard, and that would be the last step. So the first thing is when you pull the battery out, that sticker, you got to peel that sticker out. On the inside there'll be two screws underneath it. It can be a little difficult to get started. Just pick at it with your fingernail or something and you can get it to come. So I pulled it out. You can see the two screws right there is the ones you're after. So I've got one out now. I read somewhere that it took a T5 Torx head. T5 does not fit it. It's actually a T6. T5 will strip it out. So a T6 and a little screwdriver. They're pretty tight. If your screwdriver's small, I found it's easy if you wrap the handle in a sock. It gives you a little more torque, leverage on it. You got to push pretty hard. Just make sure you get lined up with them the right way, because I've fought them bad on that one. It took me 3 different drill bits and over again. So I found out it's a T6, and just push hard and use a rag or something on your screwdriver if you can't grip it tight. Alright, so I got both of them out now. The reason I said make sure you stay lined up with them is because they're actually, if you can see in that hole there, they're actually at an angle going towards the front of the controller. So you kind of have to tilt your screwdriver back towards the back to stay in line with them. And if you're going to use a sock on your screwdriver, make sure you use a clean one, else it will stink. So the next thing we're going to do is this bottom piece is going to pry off, starting at the back. And we're going to pry down and pull it right off the trigger. I wish I had a third hand to hold the camera, but starting right here at the back, fish a little screwdriver or something in there and just pry it right off. You can see these tabs here that hold it in. And just start from the back. I'm going to go around each side and just pry it right off the bottom. This button, the side press button, will pull out with the bottom piece. So you can see now I've worked around both sides and I've got it started to come off. I'm just going to pry it just like that and kind of help it right at the side of the trigger, right down there, and work it right, pry it right off the bottom. Actually, from this point, it will just pop right off, just like that. So you can see that there is no wires. I'm pretty sure it's a magnetic sensor on that, but the button comes out with it, so there's nothing to worry about. That comes off free. Next, you got more screws. I believe there's six or seven of them. There's 3 along the side, 4 along the side, right there, and then 1 on each side of the trigger, and then 1 on that side, so that makes 7 of them. Just take your time. It's one of the most aggravating parts. Make sure you're careful. That red wire, that one's right underneath it, and that one's pretty close. Just don't want to cut it with your screwdriver. Just be extra careful. So this one on the back, they're holding in the plastic piece that holds your strap, and also the connector for your positive on your battery is going to come out with it. So there's your plastic piece here. It's got your strap, and it sets right in the back of your controller like that. There's your positive terminal for your little AA that sits in there. And in hindsight, I think if you can manage just to tug that piece, slip it out, you won't need to take that strap piece out, nor those two screws. Next thing to do, once you got all those screws out and it's free, this battery compartment is going to slide right out the top of the controller. It's going to come right off that center piece. There it is. Just slides right off. There's these two silver connectors in there. Don't know what they do. They go into the battery. Them two pieces will just slide right out the side. If you need to, you can push them with a little screwdriver right there on the end, and then the wires will just pull them right out the back. Alright, now that that's done, you get to the rough part. So where I'm trying to get now is to get underneath this cover. The tricky part was figuring out how the ring came off, and remember I ended up just splitting it. If you look, there are two snaps, one right there at my thumb and one at my pinky on the other side. But I read something about putting a heat gun on it, maybe getting it to expand. I didn't go through that trouble. So if you're gonna cut it, this ring right here has to be cut underneath the trigger. It goes around, and then that split right there has to be cut, and then it will just peel just like this one. It'll open right up, and you can see underneath the trigger there are two screw holes. Them two screw holes will go back, and then I figured if I super glued that, it'd be about like new. So it's up to you. If you want to try the heat gun, you can fiddle with it, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and cut it open again because it takes quite a bit of force, and I was scared of breaking it. So I'll leave that up to you what you want to do. So for cutting through that little ring there, I'm using these little tiny wire cutters. They're like made for like a seamstress or something. And it takes a real narrow, you can't use normal size wire cutters, they won't fit in there. And I'm going to pry it and get up underneath the trigger side and just see if I can snip it right in half. Just like that. Now I've got to get through this top piece. And the trick of it is, it snaps on like a band, like a plastic band right on the outside. This inner piece will stay, as you can see on this one, with all the little infrared LEDs in there. And the outside here snaps right around it like a band. It's actually glued at the top. So once you get it split in half, you actually have to pry it open and unsnap it off around it. So I don't know if you'll be able to do that just by heating it. I don't know how they got it on. If they glued it and put it on, I'm not sure. But I'm going to cut mine through. Alright, so I did find them little cutters. Last time I cut through it with a pocket knife. Them little things do really good. Just go on each side of it and pinch it right through. I would be a little cautious not to go too deep. You don't want to cut any of that stuff. I may have got lucky both times. Just be careful. So now the thing to do, since I've got it split top and bottom, I'm just going to spread it out, pop it right off. You can see how it opens. I'm going to start with one side and work it right around till the whole thing comes off, and you got to pull it off frontwards. Remember I said at the top there's going to be some glue holding it together. Right up in here where my thumb's at. And right on the edges of this, there's some sticky rubbery tape that they put on there that'll stick it together. So when you get to the top, you're going to have to pull a little bit and you'll feel it just unstick, pull right apart. So there we are. Got both of them off. That looks just like the other one. So now that that is off, you may have been asking, why in the world are we taking that off? Let me get a light on here. 1, 2, and 2 little screws right there and right there. Them hold this top plate on. Take them off and that top plate will come off. That's the way it goes. Stripped them both. So I gotta make a decision now. Well, I managed to drill them both out without, I don't think, ruining nothing. So, well, I ruined bolts, but I got it off without breaking the cover. So, now we're in the exact same situation as I was there. So now that we got the cover off, like I said before, there is one bolt right by that little pigtail, and then one right there. Them other two, I believe, just hold on that thumbstick, and then the other two will take that motherboard off and you can get whatever else you want to get into. I'm not going to go that far. All I'm after is that little black box right there with that red and black going to it. That's that little shaker box. I'm just going to unplug that, and then I just have the reassembly left. If you by any chance have the same problems I did and have to drill them 2 bolts out, just check that magnet on your trigger. Right there is covered in shavings. So I got me a Q-tip. I'm going to see if I can't wipe them off there. I don't know if it's going to work. So, addressing that, you could snip them wires if you like. If not, I'm going to take me a tiny little screwdriver, and I'm just going to pry that little plug out right underneath that red paint there. Alright, so I ended up using them little cutters. Reach in there and twist it on a little bit and pull one side out. I'm just going to push it out the rest of the way. There it is. That is mission accomplished for me. Now I just got to return base. So I'm pulling my bolts back out with a little pair of Leathermans, and I about thinking couldn't turn them with a pair of pliers, so they're tight. There's all my screws. There's no way I'm putting that many back in these things. But these 2 here, the ones that I stripped and drilled, they are important because they're the only things that hold this cover on. Otherwise it'll just fall off and you'll lose your buttons. So them 2 are going back in. The rest of them I may put in half. And then again, even looking at it, thing pretty well snaps in. I don't think you're going to even be able to pull it off. You may stick it up in your fan. I've done that, but it snaps in there pretty good, so you may not even need them. I got my ring back on. It went on the same way it come off. Just opened up, slid right over, closed back down. I got to put them 2 bolts in, and I'll probably glue that up if it needs it. I found it easier to get them started with a T5. And I'm picking the screws out of the pile that have got the best head still left on them. But start them with the T5 until it just starts to slip, and then I'll go back to the T6, because the T6, at least mine anyways, don't seem to fit the head good. So the next thing going on is the little battery compartment there. And these wires have got to go back to it. It's pretty obvious that the white little band goes on the inside and the green goes far and the red goes to the back. I'll show you how to hook that up. Them things actually, when they push in there, they actually snapped in there. So get them straight, don't let them curl up to the inside. Push them right through and then they'll snap right in. So if you look at that piece, you can see the 2 grooves in the top. They slide right over them 2 pieces of plastic. Right down towards that hole. The knob goes in that hole. That hole right there actually slides and snaps right on that little peg. That little T-peg right there at the bottom. Just like that. And that little strap, you see them 2 bolt holes, that one there and that one there. And it flips just the way you're looking at it. slid right up underneath there, and just, you'll feel it fit right together. I actually almost forgot a key component, and that's that magnet that actually holds your battery cover on. You can see it right there. It will not slide in from the end. That's so that it won't slide out. It goes right in that groove, just the way you see it. And now I'm going to put all this back together on top of it to hold it in. So there's my strap piece. It slides right on just like that. My magnet was being a pain. So I got all that back in the way it goes. Both screws. That magnet is a pain in the butt. But that's how it goes right there. Alright, so the battery tray was tougher than it should have been. There's a little notch that slides up on this side. It's got to start first. A little slit that goes up in a slot. And that's what gets you started, and it just snaps right on. I only put one screw in it, and I think it's going to be fine. So I'm starting at the trigger. Make sure that my strap is lined up in that slot. I'm just going to push it right together. One screw in the bottom. And there we go. Just some minor damage there. Holds together good. Wow, checked it out. The phone camera's picking up the infrared. I can't see that. What? That is cool as heck. Yeah, it feels good. All the buttons pressed the way they're supposed to. The light's on. And it will not vibrate. So I've accomplished my mission. I hope you've learned something. I looked over YouTube and I couldn't find nothing on it. So I figured it out and figured I would put it up there for anybody else that might come behind me. One more thing I thought I'd throw in there is my wire system. So I've got two pulleys that were 3D printed. My dad printed them out for me. It's got bearings in them. Throw them into my ceiling. I got some 45 caliber bullets in a Ziploc bag rubber banded to it as a counterweight, so that whenever I stand up, that falls and takes all the slack out of my cable. Keeps it out of my way nice. Just an idea. Much obliged.